Great deeds make legends. Ages turn legends into eponyms. For some people, Kosciuszko's a mountain in Australia, or a beer, a bridge in New York, a town in Mississippi, a mound in Poland. What were the great deeds of the mortal man Kosciuszko? Throughout his adult life, he was all in body and soul to defeat oppression and win the blessings of liberty and equal rights for all humankind. His fight for liberty in America and Europe turned him into a symbol of freedom for poets and writers, many great leaders of Kosciuszko's time and after. Some legendary figures themselves articulated Kosciuszko's majestic deeds. American Independence War General Nathanael Greene said, "Nothing could exceed his zeal for the public service. One in a world whom no pleasure could seduce, no labour fatigue, and no anger deter." What besides greatly distinguished him was an unparalleled modesty and entire unconsciousness of having done anything extraordinary, never making a claim or a pretension for himself, and never omitting to distinguish and commend the merits of others. Poland Will Dance Again is not a story about all of Kosciuszko's life. It's a story of one small part. The part when Kosciuszko, the man, triumphed over deepest adversity and transitioned into Kosciuszko, the legend.
We've got to stop Fersen's division before he links up with General Suvorov's forces. Fersen is trapped. We're in front of him with the Vistula at his back. We've blown the bridge. The peasants are using it for firewood. To finish them off, we only need Adam Poniński's division. He'll be here soon, God willing.
Can we win? The Russian army is 4 times the size of ours.
Yes, we can win. Remember America? For 7 years, I saw small farmers and shopkeepers battle professional British soldiers, the most powerful force in the world. The Americans won. Can you imagine what that meant to me, a Pole? It was inspiring. I saw what appeared impossible. A small but cohesive group of patriots, vastly outmanned, and outgunned, triumph over a great empire. Yes, we can win. It doesn't matter who leads them, Moscow's or anyone else. I've said it over and over again. If we Poles stick together as patriots, even if we only have sides, we can and will throw off the yoke of foreign oppression.
Look, we know where the son of a bitch Poniński's divisions are. Oh, little brother, you don't have enough time to run and help Kosciuszko. Our Cossacks caught your messenger. We torture him and he spilled the beans. Ha ha ha. The battle begins at dawn.
Kosciuszko had no choice. The call of battle had to be answered. Polish cannons, led by Kosciuszko himself, wreaked terrible carnage on the Muscovite ranks. When the cannonballs ran out, they fought with rifles, and when the bullets ran out, Colonel Niemcewicz sounded the scythe charge.
Children! Brave Krakowians! Follow me!
An instant later, Kosciuszko is hit by a grenade. Head blown off, he falls dead. A bullet tears through Julian Niemcewicz's right arm, just above the elbow. The bone remains intact, but his nerves are torn. Blood spouts and his sword falls from his hand. An enemy soldier grabs his horse by the bridle. Ursin is captured. The Cossacks rob him at first and then beat him with whips. Here the Polish prisoners are held. Here the generals sit on bales of hay. And here, weighed down by greatcoats, Niemcewicz, consumed by fever, falls into morbid sleep. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the situation worsens. Confusion reigns in the Polish ranks. Kosciuszko tries to rally the men, but he is swept away by stampeding riders, hurtling through the muddy field. The Russians catch up. Kosciuszko has no chance of escape. His horse weak and slow. 3 better ones were lost in previous battles.
Give up!
Shouts Potopin. The Cossack gores Kosciuszko near the left hip.
Give up, I say!
Give up. I'd rather die.
He mouths his pistol, pulls the trigger, but it fails to fire. Potopin gores him once again. The horse rears up on its hind legs and throws the rider to the ground. Kosciuszko straddles the horse, but he falls up to his armpits into a bog. Defenseless, Kosciuszko is slashed, his skull almost cracked by the Russian broadsword. A wounded Polish soldier shrieks out,
Don't kill him! It's Kosciuszko!
They didn't realize it was Kosciuszko. He was not dressed like a general, but wore a peasant coat instead. Lying like a living corpse, surrounded by the bodies of his compatriots, chests slashed open by bayonets, faces still bearing expressions of fear and despair. The battlefield now transformed into a barren feeding ground for crows. Niemcewicz, semi-conscious, startles to his feet and listens. He and several generals huddle on the porch. The Moskals carrying a man gored in the hip, with blood oozing from his head. Niemcewicz, weeping, stumbles and collapses chest first onto the bier. Towards morning, Kosciuszko rouses himself from lethargy, blindly glances around. A sob escapes his tortured lips.
Where am I? You are wounded?
We're in a Russian prison. They shot me through the hand. It's nothing. I will look after you. I won't leave you.
I'm so relieved that, in my trials and tribulations, I can count on a friend like you. Has the uprising collapsed? What's to come?
What's to come? Remember, within every defeat, there is a seed to victory.
But how long before this seed bears fruit?
Who knows? Perhaps 124 springs.
What a prophet you are.
No talking. Quiet in there. No talking.
A mighty convoy proceeds, General Fersen in front, with a team of 6 horses and a looted carriage. Then, in a smaller carriage is Kosciuszko, accompanied by a surgeon. A larger wagon seats Generals Szelakovski, Kniazewicz and Kamienski, as well as Niemcewicz and Fischer. A throng of Polish prisoners forms the convoy tail.
Where are the lands and houses?
Where is the happy life you promised us?
Will we find it in Siberia?
Winding along, hundreds of carts loaded with loot, as well as herds of cattle. Behind the carts, 2,000 Russian soldiers guard the prisoners and the loot. Newcomers arrive from Warsaw. Lapierre, a dark-skinned valet called Domingo, Kosciuszko's cook Jean, as well as Niemcewicz's servant Franciszek. Lapierre falls to his knees and displays a trunk and praises its contents.
Oh, General, Domingo has brought you the best things. Snuff box, sheep's coat, frock coats, long dress, tailcoat, nightgowns, 20 pairs of pants, 23 underpants, 5 pairs big boots, 3 pairs of shoes, beaucoup de pillows, feather covers for winter, a map of Poland, and a carriage.
Unbelievable. Domingo, you thought of everything. Even the silk and cotton stockings. This will last me a prison lifetime. But which prison?
General Fersen orders a baggage search. They are looking to confiscate written matter, probing in particular the belongings of the writer Niemcewicz. Fersen rummages through the contents, noting,
Sermons of the Parliament. Oh, a Targowica Bible and publications criticizing the Russian nation. Cartoons laponing Tsaritsa as a husband killer and caricatures of her. An elegy on the second partition of Poland and a letter to the Targowica traitors. Confiscate everything! Confiscate!
Fersen receives an order to join Suvorov's forces to help launch an attack on Warsaw. General Alexei Khrushchev assumes control over the Polish convoy. Waving his baton around, he beckons to the nobles standing nearby to witness with their own eyes their captured leader. There was a rumor going around that the convoy was transporting a false leader, and that the real one had escaped and was gathering a Polish army. Kosciuszko felt humiliated by these charades. Niemcewicz expressed his contempt.
Up till now, I've seen humans behave like wild animals. This is the first time I've seen a beast behaving like a human.
Khrushchev encourages Niemcewicz to agree to a meeting with Princess Sangushkova. The princess believes that if she can wheedle the Poles into betraying their country, it will carry favor with Khrushchev and the Russians won't plunder her estates.
Redeem yourself, your graces. Identify the ringleaders, and rest assured the generosity of all-powerful Empress will have no bounds.
Our revolution has no secrets. We know the instigator. It's the Tsarina herself. Partitioning Poland. Misery, rape, and oppression. Patriots backed us, and neither the threat of death nor imprisonment can force me to reveal their names.
I bid you farewell. I regret that your grace is so stubborn.
At first, the prisoners are kept in the tavern for several hours. Later, they are locked in the carriages. To avoid attention, the bells are removed from the shafts. The convoy slips into Petersburg through a labyrinth of darkened streets. These moments are filled with terror. Around 9 in the evening, furtive characters cloaked with disguises arrive. Powerful mitts lift Kosciuszko under the armpits and carry him toward the Neva River. Floe to floe, the breaking ice creaks. They seat Kosciuszko in a covered boat. The oars crackle. Avoiding the ice, the boat recedes from the bank.
Niemcewicz, filled with dread, is in the other boat.
What fate awaits me? Will they dump me into the icy gulf?
They enter a large gate and climb an illuminated staircase. Kosciuszko is carried up the stairs into a small office, where he can rest. Niemcewicz and Fischer, hair unkempt and shabbily dressed in wolfskins, are left to the glances of curious onlookers. After half an hour, an individual draped in medals arrives. It's Samoylov, the public prosecutor, the Tsarina's favorite.
What role did you play for Kosciuszko?
The role of friend and volunteer officer.
Replies Niemcewicz, his arm in a sling, adding,
I apologize for my disheveled state, Your Excellency.
This is not the time for niceties.
Retorts Samoylov in rage. He orders the two to be taken away. Samoylov himself goes to see Kosciuszko, who probingly inquires,
Where are my companions?
Calm down. They are settling into their little chambers.
No, not in the chambers. They are in the dungeon. Tomorrow they will discover that the Tsarina has condemned them to life imprisonment. Kosciuszko's frail health induces the Tsarina to permit him 2 rooms in the house of the fortress governor. She plans to interrogate the prisoners immediately. The greedy, despotic Tsarina, ruthless about Poland, wants to eliminate all conspiratorial elements from the country. She wants to unmask the leaders of the insurrection and track down their connections in France and Prussia. She seeks evidence against the Czartoryskis as an excuse to confiscate their estates. She instructs Samoylov about the answers she demands.
What did Kosciuszko talk about with Princess and Prince Czartoryski in Sieniawa? Did he receive moral and material support from them? Is it true that Princess promised him her daughter's hand in marriage if he won the uprising? How much money did he get from Madame Kosakowska? What relation did Kosciuszko, Potocki, and Kollontai have with the Royal Saxon Court? Did the Royal Court know an insurrection was planned?
Samoylov demands written confessions. The ailing general wrote for a week, with difficulty and disgust, but he wrote with courage. He admitted planning a treaty with Turkey against Russia. These words, full of dignity and courage, stood in the face of criminals who were just waiting for a nod from Samoylov. Considering his unhealed wounds, this further revealed his strength of character. Samoylov demands to know what Kosciuszko was doing in Paris a year ago. Kosciuszko almost chokes. He wasn't going to divulge the most secret negotiations with Robespierre on the matter of France's assistance for the uprising. The only person privy to these secret negotiations was Peter Malashevsky. At this point, Samoylov shows Kosciuszko a handwritten note. Malashevsky betrayed us? Kosciuszko's faith in people wavers. He breaks down. Titov wrote in his report,
Situation is serious. I fear for Kosciuszko's life.
Niemcewicz was guarded by a corporal and 4 soldiers. With long fur-lined coats wrapped around their bodies, they slept on the floor surrounding him and keeping their weapons close by. Samoylov, the interrogator, arrives. He advises the prisoners to speak honestly, and in return, he will be freed and given honors and status. The alternative? Torture. Samoylov demands written confessions. In one night. Niemcewicz can only write with his left hand, as his right is in a sling. Kosciuszko spends Christmas Eve in torment. The only newspapers available to him were those with reports about the slaughter of Praga, a suburb of Warsaw, and the crushing of the uprising.
Among circles of friends, within family gatherings, in the whole of Poland, a lament is repeated. Kosciuszko has perished! Several sick people succumbed to a shocking fever. Others went mad. You could meet people on the street, wringing their hands, banging their heads against a wall, and repeating despairingly,
Kosciuszko has perished.
The inference being Poland is no more.
Zaszło słońce w krwawe morze. Błysnął bagnet. Błysły noże. Suworowa pałasz nagi błysnął hasłem na rzeź Pragi. W każdym domu trupy leżą, pluszczą progi krwią ich świeżą. Po ulicach krwi się fala, aż ku Wiśle gdzieś przewala. Jeszcze nie syt Moskal srogi wydał hasło do pożogi. Staje Praga w ogniach cała, pożar na jej dachach pała. W żadnej ludzkiej świata mowie mąk tych słowo nie wypowie. I nikt nie ma dość odwagi, by opisać tę rzeź Pragi. Dymią zgliszcza i krew dymi, w jeden mordus stos olbrzymi, a przez trupy do Warszawy sam Suworow wchodzi krwawy. Suworowie, póki żyjesz, krwi tej z rąk twych nie obmyjesz. Imię będziesz miał u świata nie żołnierza, ale kata.
Mr. Kosciuszko sits in one spot from morning till night, in pained thought.
On New Year's Eve, Kosciuszko suffered such a bad headache that he passed out. When he came to, he had to answer the next lot of questions posed by the Tsarina. He showed cleverness and a deeply thought-out strategy. Even Samoylov was pleasantly surprised.
Kosciuszko isn't as stupid as I previously thought.
At midnight, Niemcewicz heard the rattle of a carriage. Trunks and bundles were being carried into the cells. The next day, it was revealed that more leaders of the uprising had been arrested after the insurrection had been crushed. Andrzej Kapostas was put behind Niemcewicz's cell. Frail, he suffered epileptic fits. Always mournful, he howled dreadfully in his cell. Kilinsky, the bootmaker, in a cell further on, was constantly complaining about the lack of women and continually cursed the Tsarina, who, it was well known, was famous for her unsatisfied lust. On festive days, he dressed in ceremonial attire, a floor-length tight robe, over which he wore a long vest and a belt studded with gold. And under the gaze of the surprised torturers, he strode pompously to the toilet. Niemcewicz suffered badly from loneliness. To ease his need of companionship, he was given a grey cat. It didn't help. His beard grew longer and longer. He lost weight, grew weaker, suffered from stomach disorders and dizziness. As Titov wrote,
He is sick of life and wants to use hunger to emaciate himself. He is very weak, his inside have shrunk, and he might die soon.
His condition worsens. On the 31st of May, tortured by terrible colic pains, the sick man moans in delirium. On the 14th of June, the Tsarina instructs her court physician, Dr. Rogerson.
It's not in the royal interest to have Kosciuszko die. Do something so he lives a little longer.
Rogerson examines Kosciuszko and declares him to be in a very dangerous condition. The general is moved from the fort to the marble palace, where he is waited upon by servants bedecked in gala outfits, who drive him around on an armchair with wheels. Kosciuszko lays on a long chair sofa for long periods, his face anguished and head bandaged. He is tortured by thoughts of his companions, languishing in Siberia. Lapierre appears carrying a tray. On it are a tureen and a stack of books.
General, some warm broth, it will massage your heart and tummy. No? Oh, sure. I will be happy to read some cool French romances to you.
Dear Domingo, why don't you read about Paris while I draw the fields of my Maciejowice estate?
Bless the knight, who through his own undoing defended you and didn't allow you to die in shame. Poland has died, but he protected her from dishonour.
The young King of Sweden, Gustav IV, arrives at court. Catherine has a plan to marry off her granddaughter to him. She believes the marriage can solve a lot of difficult political problems. Catherine likes Gustav, a charming and witty 18-year-old, but 13-year-old Alexandra likes him even more. It was love at first sight. In the fervour of negotiations, the question of religion is forgotten. The date of the engagement is set for the 11th of September. Before the evening festivities, in the presence of the Tsarina and all her family, Gustav begins reading the engagement document. Suddenly, he's taken aback at the sight of the clause, which gives the future queen of his Lutheran nation the right to retain her Orthodox faith. He hurls the document to the ground.
I've been trapped. My hand will not sign this.
The Tsarina kindly tries to sway him.
You asked for Alexandra's hand knowing she was Orthodox. It surely means you accept her religion, and therefore she doesn't need to change it.
There is no way that Sweden will have an Orthodox queen.
The Tsarina looked at him coldly and left the room.
A little king of a little country. Who does he think he is sulking here? He's insulted the crown.
After this, Catherine suffers a mild stroke, her first. Gustav and his entourage return to Stockholm. As they pass the fort Viborg, he thinks about what happened at this spot just 6 years ago. During the Swedish-Russo War, his father, King Gustav III, fought a great sea battle here, hoping to take St. Petersburg and remove greedy Catherine from power. He lost the battle. The young king returned to Stockholm without inkling he had contributed to the Tsarina's downfall. Meanwhile, the monotony of prison life in the fortress continued. Days passed unchanged. You could easily think nothing would ever happen here until the end of time. However, as usual, the Empress spent the night in bed with Platon Zubov. In the morning, she drank 2 cups of coffee, joked with her wardrobe mistress, after which she disappeared. Around 8, her ministers gathered. They waited an hour. Zotov the butler thought that the Empress was taking a stroll in the winter garden. He looked for her among the jasmine and orange trees. Finally, he opened the door of the toilet and screamed in terror. The ministers ran to him. Niemcewicz wrote afterwards.
Oh my God, what a sight! The monarch of half the world lays there unconscious. Catherine, in all her refinement, reposes in regal excrement. Her hitched-up skirt exposes her vast throne sitting posterior to one and all.
Dr. Rogerson arrives within the hour and diagnoses a stroke. Tsarevich Paul hastily returns from Gutchin. He immediately destroys the document in which Catherine nominated her grandson, Alexander, as her successor. The next day, at 9 p.m., she passes away. Within 2 hours, the son she hated is sworn in as Tsar Paul I. In a spirit of reconciliation, surrounded by his entourage, and accompanied by Tsarevich Alexander, Tsar Paul visits Kosciuszko at the Marble Palace.
General, I've come to restore your freedom. It is my very first edict.
Kosciuszko, confused, sat in stunned silence. Tsar Paul sat next to him on the sofa and spoke with great gentleness.
I always grieved over your Grace's fate, but during my mother's rule, I couldn't do anything to help. I know you were severely persecuted. Under her rule, all worthy people were persecuted. I was the first in line.
Your Majesty, it's not my own fate I grieve about, but the fate of my homeland.
Your Grace, forget about your homeland.
I'd rather I was forgotten, but my homeland free. A lot of nations have fallen, yes, but none of these resemble the fall of Poland. The last uprising presented extraordinary proof of Polish patriotism and virtue. If only your Imperial Majesty could have witnessed it. I know what efforts were made to give your Imperial Majesty false impression of our nation. They were not true. What happened? Righteous and widespread discontent energized further to better the fate of our homeland, to get out from under oppression and disarray, and this was called a rebellion? Our citizens were headed into underground prisons.
The Tsar turned to his entourage, saying,
Look at that! Such passion!
Forgive me, Your Majesty. I might have spoken out too forcefully.
No, you spoke straight to my heart. But now please don't think of anything else except your health. I've already given orders that your Grace should not want for anything. If you have any demand, speak up bravely and tell me openly, as you would to a friend, because I am your true friend, and I would like you to be the same to me. As proof of my friendship, accept this sword from me.
Your Majesty, what do I need this sword for when I have no homeland to defend? But I have a foster homeland. I would like to travel to America.
You have it, General. My permission, as well as a promise of all possible assistance for the long journey. Good health, and do love me,
said the Tsar, kissing Kosciuszko on the forehead and squeezing his hands. He spoke to the entourage in praise of Kosciuszko.
This is a worthy and rare person. I do not see a fool in him. He's a courageous leader of a fallen nation, wronged by fate, and my mother.
Targovice traitors, sycophants at the Tsar's court felt threatened. What would their fate be if the new Tsar showered the Polish patriots with graces? During dinner with Tsar Paul, the Marshal of the Royal Court, Wielhorski, and Chamberlain Iliński began plotting.
How can we sweeten Kosciuszko's remaining years?
Your Majesty, we need to shower him with gifts. To begin with, give him 1,000 souls and 12,000 silver rubles. If he accepts them, he will lose a lot of respect and popularity in his nation.
Kosciuszko is ailing. He is incapable of leading. Let him go to the other end of the earth. The others must not be freed. Niemcewicz, no. Ignacy Potocki, absolutely not. Thousands of exiles, no. Otherwise, there is the danger of another uprising.
The Tsar wanted to prevail.
But I want to resolve the Polish problem amicably.
Perhaps make Kosciuszko and the others take an oath of loyalty to the Emperor.
Good thinking! This will cut down Kosciuszko credibility in the nation.
In the evening, Wielhorski appears at Kosciuszko's place.
Here's a proposition. If you swear an oath of allegiance, the Tsar will set free 12,000 soldiers imprisoned during the uprising.
Kosciuszko is determined to consult with Marshal Ignacy Potocki.
Is the Tsar being two-faced? I thought he was being genuine with me. On the one hand, he's offering freedom, and on the other, he's making me pay for it.
I'll bet my right arm. This oath is the wicked idea of the Targovice people. It's too bad there's no time for negotiations. Take the oath. You'll save thousands of our people from doom. Just think. Your sacrifice might signify the return of 12,000 pairs of hands to our country. These hands will help rebuild our homeland and raise it from the ashes.
Meanwhile, Niemcewicz is unaware of what happened, but on the 27th of November, Inspector Makarov brings him the good news, along with his supper.
It's cheerful in Kosciuszko kitchen. They said that the Tsar visited the general and he's going to free you all.
The next day, the same Makarov rushes into the cell puffing, sits on Niemcewicz's bed, and pulls out a document from his pocket.
Sir, the Tsar has set you free. We are going to town. But first, we have to shave off your beard.
Niemcewicz put the shaved beard into his pocket as a souvenir. In the evening, a group of Poles took the oath of loyalty. In his heart, Kosciuszko fought a battle more dire than the one at Maciejowice.
How could this be? The country had entrusted him with wider powers and with greater rank than the majesty of the king himself. Should he now place these priceless national jewels at the feet of a foreign monarch and accept a slave's surrender?
I, Tadeusz Kosciuszko, whose signature appears below, promise and swear in front of Almighty God and on the Holy Bible that I should be and want to be subservient, faithful and obedient to His Imperial Majesty.
After that, he never complained to anyone about what an enormous sacrifice he had made for his vanquished compatriots. The beauty of a fulfilled offering radiated from his martyred figure.
Kosciuszko drove to an audience with the Tsar, to whom he presents a list of prisoners eligible to be freed. The Tsar's amnesty covered not 12, but as many as 20,000 Poles. Not only were the soldiers of the uprising freed, but patriots exiled to Siberia earlier were also freed. Kosciuszko is lying on a sofa. Feeble, stuttering voice, he's fearful. He gestures as someone is eavesdropping. Niemcewicz kneels down beside Kosciuszko and embraces him.
I know you have suffered a lot, but please sacrifice yourself and accompany me to America.
Oh, you know how much I'm attached to you, but after so much suffering, I've been separated from my family for so long. I'd like to visit my homeland, fall at my father's feet.
I'm planning to leave in a week. Can't you see the state I'm in? Can I endure such a long journey alone?
No, I won't abandon you.
The Poles were ordered to attend the funeral ceremonies. Niemcewicz refused to go to the catafalque, to avoid kissing the Tsarina's hand, the hand which had assassinated his homeland.
On a ceremonial bed, elevated on 12 posts, you could see the dead remains, the futility of all greatness. The queen of a fifth of the world, today feasted on by worms. Her face concealed by a bloated stomach. She wore a Muscovite robe of green velvet lined with richly embroidered sable. Many crowns, sceptres, globes of the world and medals were laid around the base of the funerary podium.
Kosciuszko arrives at the Winter Palace in a carriage. He's pushed through a long series of palace chambers in a wheeled armchair. Tsar Paul, together with his family, receive their guest in the bedroom. The Tsar gives Kosciuszko 12,000 rubles, a great carriage thoughtfully decked out with a bed, a field kitchen, table linen, as well as a sable fur.
In the history of Russia, There is no other example of a Tsar endowing a defeated foe with so many graces.
The Tsar appoints an officer escort for Kosciuszko's journey to Stockholm. The close-knit group of travellers is comprised of Kosciuszko, Julian Niemcewicz, his faithful friend and adjutant, now acting as quartermaster, the musically talented officer Libyszewski, a cheerful little jackass who ends up carrying the ailing leader, Lapierre, the handsome dark-skinned valet, and Jean, the French cook. A 6-month journey over land and water awaits Finland, Sweden, and England before they finally set sail from Bristol to Philadelphia. Heavy snow slows the journey. The comfortable, large and heavy carriage is pulled by 12 horses. It was freezing cold. They didn't get far on the first day. Snow drifts, a broken shaft.
Traveling in December is appalling. Dress on dress, fur over fur makes you heavy and immobile as a granite block. You can hardly breathe in the tightly packed vehicle, and your fur sticks to your face.
Snow, 8 foot deep, stops the carriage. All who get out find themselves waist deep in snow.
In the next village we have to get strong horses that can pull us out from this chasm. These postilion-driven miserable horses are good for nothing.
What time is it? 9. We've wasted another 4 hours. Nice pace.
The travellers are nearing the Glimmer River, which separates the Russian zone of Finland from the Swedish part.
Our emotions overflowed when we arrived on Swedish soil. Our ties with Russia were severed, but we were still dragging the rest of the train behind us. We felt intensely relieved, sensing we had abandoned the dregs of prison life on the other side of the river. Flowing tears, fervent hugs, a poignant and unforgettable moment.
They reach Åbo, the former capital of Finland, just before noon. They find rooms in the famous and elegant Zeipel Inn, near the historic cathedral. An uninterrupted stream of tributes and veneration begins. The local newspaper welcomes them effusively. In another newspaper, an enthusiastic account of the farewell concert. Local students, as we read, carried Kosciuszko to the concert hall, and after the concert, they carried him back to his rooms. Later, they sang into the night under his window.
Who is this suffering with the look of dying virtue, which freed rises from the scattered ashes heavenwards? It's you, Kosciuszko. You, O Polish hero, who wept that you had lived a day longer than the freedom of your beloved homeland.
The travellers stop for the night on the island archipelago with a friendly fishing family. In the cottage, there is an unusual bedroom, 3-story bunks. The fishermen are mending their nets, while Libyszewski is giving a concert under the bunks.
Libyszewski, tired out by the journey, throws himself on the bed. There, sprawled out, almost totally undressed, he takes up his fiddle and gives a most special show. A person playing contra dances and Cossacks in bed. The strange form and movements of our musician, the funny faces he pulls, the jollity of the dances he plays, brings about loud laughter. The laughter continues until sleep overcomes the fiddler.
The caravan continues through the frozen archipelago. The wheels are on the first sledge and the carriage box is on the second. The passengers ride in the open, but an improvised rug canopy shields Kosciuszko. Will the ice hold? Locals test the path with their pikes. Kosciuszko's terrified cook shouts,
"Oh, General! Sir! This ice is no thicker than a rissole! We'll all be drowned!"
Severe weather, gale-force winds, ice floes and ice sheets frustrate progress. For 11 days, travel is interrupted at Ekero, a small town. Niemcewicz visits a local post office and has an opportunity to admire new technology.
An optical telegraph. What a clever invention. What a marvel. What a pleasure it is to be able to send one's words through the air with the speed of thought.
Niemcewicz drifts through a deeply snowed forest. Suddenly, he plunges through the crusted snow into a sinkhole. Deeper and deeper, his heavy boots and thick fur mire him in the deep snow. Help! Help! He shouts. Just as he loses strength, help arrives. Major Udom, the guardian angel, pulls him out. Temperatures plunge. Confined in the snow-submerged dacha, the party feasts on the hazel grouse and white rabbits, which hospitable locals have dropped down the chimney. At last, on the 22nd of January, it thaws. Major Udom commands,
Hurry up! Hurry up! Let's get ourselves onto the boat!
Kosciuszko climbs into a sledge. The kitchen and the rest of the baggage are packed onto the 3 other sledges. What about the carriage? The carriage, too large, and the boat, too small. For several days, they struggle to find a way through the icebergs. Kosciuszko is a sensation of the day. He's welcomed as a conqueror, a hero, a national martyr. Crowds of people come on foot, hoping to catch a glimpse. Concern for Kosciuszko's health causes local authorities to limit the amount of carriage traffic in the hotel street, so the clatter of hooves and wheels on the pavement doesn't disturb the recuperating hero. For some, this is the journey's end, their mission concluded. The Tsar's escort sets off on the return trip to Petersburg. Kosciuszko presents Major Udom a watch. And now, it's time to farewell Lapierre.
Domingo, you have to think of the future. Do you want to come with me to America?
Oh no, sir. I live 13 years in Europe. I be a European man. I speak lots of languages. I go to Poland, find a job there. America? No, sir.
Make up your mind. If that is your wish, go to Poland. I will give you a reference to Prince Dominik Radziwiłł. He will look after you properly. Remember, always love Poland.
The young King Gustav, who only a few months ago broke off his engagement to the Tsarina's granddaughter, is very keen to meet Kosciuszko. He invites him to the palace. The general refuses to go. Such a visit might be construed as an anti-Russian act. So the king proposes a secret meeting, but the general doesn't agree to that either. Artists come seeking inspiration for Kosciuszko's portraits. Images emerge of a man with bandaged head on a chaise longue. The first appears in Stockholm. Here the court engraver, Johann Friedrich Martin, visits Kosciuszko.
Too many guests, too little time for reading. And there is so much news about our beloved homeland. All of a sudden, I'm full of joy. The conspiracy is full-blown. Polish regiments are forming in exile. Listen, I need to have contacts with Paris.
Maybe the Dutch diplomat who visited yesterday can help us establish contact with the Directorate, or even with Napoleon himself.
He will help. He will help. In the meantime, take a look around to see if there is a boat sailing for France.
A small port, a large ice floe. It'll be easier to find something in Göteborg. So, we're not sailing to America?
Closely supervised by the Tsar's ambassador, the lack of privacy, the impossibility of secret correspondence with France, induced Kosciuszko to leave the Swedish capital. He departs on the 23rd of February by stagecoach, making his way to Göteborg. The guests are given quarters with the garrison commander, Colonel Anders Leonard Treffenberg. Local musicians organize concerts. Göteborg is a wealthy town. The people love to feast and drink. And drink. One day, a rich wine merchant invites Niemcewicz to see his cellars.
We came into a huge underground vault where barrels galore, filled with all kinds of wine, stood in a row reaching right up to the ceiling. My host kept on wanting me to try yet another, even better wine. And as I kept on tasting good ones, or better ones, the best, right up to wines that were incomparable. So our heads began to spin so much that we rested them against a barrel and both fell into a deep sleep.
You weren't around yesterday, Ursin. You were gadding about, so I had to rejoice in the good news alone.
Could this be news from Europe?
Oh, yes. General Dombrovsky's in Paris. He has negotiated a deal with the French government that they will finance a new legion. Apparently our soldiers sent around a rumor that their leader would soon be arriving and will stand at the head of the army. And do you know what Dombrovsky did? He gathered together all the officers and made it known that he still regarded Kosciuszko as his chief and leader. Oh, the legions. Poland will not perish yet.
Oh, I see. But in the meantime, the leader and chief can neither walk nor get up on a horse.
But I can still get to a clavichord on crutches, and with a joyful heart compose a waltz for those gallant boys. Yet Poland will dance again.
General, sir, now there are 2 polonaises and a waltz in the collection.
Remind me in London to get my compositions published. We need to send them to our soldiers.
Weeks pass. Kosciuszko grows gloomy. An invitation from Napoleon has still not arrived. Depressed, with a heavy heart, on the 10th of May, he boards a small merchant ship and sets sail for England.
Sleep, O General, from all suffering, let your soul be free. Poland, your land, has her freedom in her destiny.
Close your eyes, O General, close your eyes, dear friend. In your dreams see people reason, time and time again.
Streams shall bear away these snowdrifts, lumpy ice shall melt. May victorious shall be with us, and all shall be well.
Poland has not, will not perish, will throw off her chains, will then hitch her skirts up gaily, heels kick up again.
Kosciuszko takes residence in Hotel Sablonnière, Leicester Square. His arrival is announced in the Gentleman's Magazine. The whole of London queues up to visit the world-famous hero. During 2 weeks, crowds of people trail through Kosciuszko's room. Politicians, philosophers, poets, aristocrats, the best doctors and the most famous painters. By the order of the Tsar, Ambassador Vorontsov convenes a medical consultation.
The head wound from a cut by a sabre brought about concussion and a partial lack of feeling because of damage to a nerve in the head, whereas the wound that's come about from a deep stab with a lance in a hip damaged a nerve near the sciatic lymph node, which is causing hip weakness and paralysis to the left leg. It also damaged the bladder. The recommended treatment for the patient comprises exercise, massage, warm baths, showers, diathermy. General, please send this report to Dr. Rush, who will assume responsibility for your health in America.
Kosciuszko is advised to have spectacles made for himself. He doesn't keep them long. In America, less than a year later, Little Turtle, the Indian chief from Miami, visits Kosciuszko. He tries on the spectacles and declares that he sees a lot better with them. As well as the spectacles, Kosciuszko gifts the chief 2 matching pistols and says, modest and pathologically suspicious, Kosciuszko refuses to pose for painters. Richard Cosway, the royal painter to King George III, paints him from memory. The famous Benjamin West gazes at him through a keyhole. Kosciuszko, although fatigued, yearns to meet the poet Walcott, whose satirical verses he read when he was in Tsarist prison. He gives Libashevsky a letter and a bottle of wine.
Stash, I've written a note to Dr. Walcott. He's the only person in London, truly, the only person whom I wish to meet. He's the last bottle from our stores of ancient Falernian wine. Take it to him, and beg him if he would deign to come here, because I would like to thank him in person.
Is that the poet who aimed satirical jabs at King George, General?
Same, Stasha. There are countries where the spirit of freedom reigns. The satirist can poke fun at the king and somehow no one shackles him in irons. Poor Ursen. He suffered so much for his rhymes about the Tsarina.
And Walcott does visit Kosciuszko.
Doctor, when my tormented heart wanted to die, your verses lifted my spirits greatly. But one must keep on living to build a country where freedom of speech reigns.
But by what miracle, General, did you come upon my satire?
The hand of God. The prison guard brought me a book to read, but he must have been blind and didn't know what he was bringing.
Kościuszko bardem nazwał mnie boskim. Me wiersze rozjaśniły mroki jego celi. To tam nasz bohater czytał moje strofy, a czytał je z delicją, ich długo rozanielił. Przesłał mi teraz butelkę falerno zacnego, aby w posępną słotę ukoić mój smętek. Przez Leicester Square rad biegłem do niego. Wszak Bart i bohater są jak 2 gołębie.
Walcott reminisced about his meeting with Kosciuszko many years later, telling the poet Lord Byron about it, who then wrote an account of it in his memoirs. Byron cited Walcott, saying that the people who kept on running to see Kosciuszko were mainly politicians from the opposition. That's not surprising. The ruling Tories officially supported the third partition of Poland. They were courting an alliance with Russia. Those who turned up at Kosciuszko's were liberals, the abolitionist William Wilberforce, the MP Charles James Fox, the playwright Richard Sheridan, and others.
General, may I present the young parliamentarian William Wilberforce? They say he is the wittiest person in England.
Don't they say that I was once a profligate and a gambler? Maybe they don't say that anymore because I have honestly converted.
Our new friend is concerned about the fate of African prisoners, and at the moment is writing a bill in the hope that Parliament will abolish this hideous trade. It's a disgrace. 11 million people have been sold into slavery.
We're thinking, General, how to organize the world so that all races can live together in harmony. A few years ago, we created a colony in Sierra Leone to where we're directing black and white settlers. They're learning to exist together. We'll see how it'll go. Is it true, General, that you used to have a black aide-de-camp?
I have had two wonderful friends. My valet Agrippa had many talents, including medical ones. He used to assist in operations during the war. The second, Domingo, also a valet, was a European, a dandy, very well read, mastered several languages, including our not easy Polish one. That first one didn't want to come to Poland. The second one didn't want to return to America. I miss them both very much. But that's a very long story.
Kosciuszko was extremely surprised to see his old foe, the English general Benastre Tarleton, who fought on the opposite side of the barricades in America. Now, in London, Tarleton visited him with members of the Whigs Club. It was on Tarleton's initiative that the members passed around a collection for an elegant, gold-encrusted commemorative sword. It was also due to the initiative of the Whigs Club that finally the sheet music of 3 pieces composed by Kosciuszko are published. Kosciuszko didn't feel well in London. It was with relief that he welcomed an invitation to Bristol. There, he was greeted with great honours. Sheriffs appeared at the toll gates, a cavalry regiment, as well as 2 old friends, the American ambassador Rufus King, a friend from the War of Independence, and a painter, John Trumbull, a friend from Saratoga. Another friend from the War of Independence, the US consul for the port of Bristol, Elias van der Host, invited him to be a guest in his house. Each evening, on the initiative of the garrison commander, the army orchestra plays under Kosciuszko's window. Crowds of people gather in the park, hoping to get a glimpse of the famous hero. The day before his departure, a delegation from the city council arrived to see Kosciuszko, bearing an unusual present, a mahogany case with silver plate, each piece inscribed, "To the Friends of Liberty in Bristol, to the gallant Kosciuszko." They deliver a sincere, albeit pompous speech.
25 years ago, Prussia, Austria, and Russia divided Poland between them. But Polish patriots did not abandon the hope of restoring their independence. So today, General Kosciuszko, an embodiment of Polish nationalism, is royally welcomed in Bristol. We are delighted that we have an opportunity to express to you our high veneration. It is with admiration that we regard your valour and iron obstinacy in the defence of your homeland, which has been attacked by tyrannical, bloodthirsty hordes.
Witnesses recall the powerful impression Kosciuszko made on them, especially his extraordinary warmth and a spirit untainted by life in captivity. Crowds stand on rocky outcrops on the banks of the River Avon and bid the general goodbye with shouts of farewell.
Farewell, General!
Farewell,
Farewell,
General!
General! Goodbye!
Goodbye!
A day of triumphal procession. English officers carry Kosciuszko on a litter. Boats with flowers and fruit meet them. Out at sea, the freighter Adriana, decorated with American flags, waits at anchor. As Kosciuszko is carried on board, those present take off their hats as a mark of respect.
The leader, conquered at Maciejowice, leaves Europe a victor.
2 months later, across the Atlantic, crowds gather along Philadelphia Harbor to fet the famous Independence War hero. Kosciuszko's health improves. Knowing the respect French authorities have for the general, American Vice President Thomas Jefferson asks his friend to undertake a secret mission to persuade France not to declare war on America. Kosciuszko agrees, travelling incognito as Thomas Canberg. He leaves for Paris, May 4, 1798. Perhaps his presence in Europe will inspire a Polish insurrection. France and America remain at peace. Alas, Poland stays oppressed. Unable to return to his homeland, Kosciuszko settles in Switzerland. He dies in 1817. The following year, he is disinterred from a Swiss church and reburied next to Polish kings in Wawel Castle, Krakow. His heart, in an urn, is placed in the royal castle, Warsaw. Kosciuszko becomes a symbol of freedom and integrity. In 1823, his countrymen built a symbolic grave in his honour, the Krakow Mound, over 30 metres high. In 1825, West Point cadets choose Kosciuszko over all other Independence War heroes to be commemorated in their first memorial. Today, there are over 100 Kosciuszko monuments worldwide. Paul Edmund Strzelecki, son of a Polish insurrectionist, after climbing a summit in Australia that resembled the Krakow Mound, decided,
Although in a foreign country, on a foreign ground, but amongst free people who appreciate freedom, I could not refrain from giving it the name of Mount Kosciuszko.